Something sinister is happening in Ravnica, and it's very clear when you see the changes in the residents of the world. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about a newly spoiled card from Guilds of Ravnica. This is a very interesting one. So, this is a reissue, a reimagining, a newer version of an older legendary creature from previous Ravnica sets. So, we're going to be talking today about Tristani. So let's before I show you the new card and we dive into that, we're gonna start a little back in the past because it makes more sense to do it that way for me. So we're talking about the Celestian Guild. So there's 10 Ravnican guilds that all regulate Ravnican society. All of Ravnica is a giant city world and it's run by these 10 guilds. The Celestian Guild is, depending on how you look at it, a gigantic collective or a giant cult themed around nature and things like that. All right. So originally, when Ravnica started to have the 10 guilds leading society, there was a leader for each of these 10 guilds that was part of the initial guild pact. And that, in the case of the Celestians, was Mat Celestia, which was an elemental formed out of the essence of a bunch of dryads that lived inside of a giant world tree. Okay, so that was the original leader of the Celestian conclave. Now, when everything fell apart and Sadek tried to destroy the guild pact, everything of that nature happened. There was a problem with the world tree. The conclave got disrupted, and they sought an answer to sort this out. They needed to do something, and that's actually where Tristani first comes into the picture, because Tristani was 3 separate dryads, essentially. The Celestian Conclave was in disarray because they were losing their connection to Mat Celestia and the World Tree. So 3 dryad sisters named Oba, Ses, and Sim went into a deep trance to try and connect with Mat Celestia. During their trance, they were bound to an old oak tree. Once they successfully contacted the consciousness of the World Tree of Mat Celestia, the Mat Celestia actually fused the 3 dryads with the World Tree. So each of these dryads originally had separate names and personalities. There was Oba, who was described as wild and full of life. Her hair was tangled with leaves and vines, her eyes shifting with her moods, from green like flecks of emerald and jade to smoky brown. Then there was Ses. Ses was ordered in manner and speech. Her hair was held in place by a headpiece made of goldenwood and fell to her shoulders in a cascade of auburn. And Sim was the eldest and the bridge between the other 2 sisters. And you can see that right there in the middle of the artwork. You can see the 3 sisters there. Despite being a small, slight dryad, everyone within the Celestian Conclave could feel the power within her. She would always find a way to balance the needs of one with the other. So when you take a look at the artwork here and the card for Tristani, because this is actually represented in a physical card in the game, the original Tristani card, Tristani Celestia's voice. And this is 2 white and 2 green for a 2/5. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And for a green, a white, and a colorless, and tapping it, you get to populate, which puts a token onto the battlefield that is a copy of a creature token you control. So Tristani was the undisputed new leader of the Celestian Guild, fused with the World Tree. When you take a look at the artwork, it's absolutely lovely. Honestly, I love the and take note of the fact that they're wearing garments and things like that, because there will be a contrast when we look at the newer version. There is the autumn aspect, but other things that we'll talk about as well. So you can see here that they're all pictured looking together, all straight forward at you. They're parts of the trees. What you may not notice at first if you don't look down is they have kind of almost a Naga-esque feel to them. Normally when you're dealing with dryads, like let's say for example, you take like Shannon Dryad. Normally the concept with dryads is that dryads will be bound to a tree, but they're also separate. They can leave the tree that they're bound to. They can physically absorb themselves into the tree, but they can leave with a fully formed body. Now, these dryads who have been fused with the world tree are half tree. You can see it. It's almost like they have serpent trunks, like half snake bodies, but made of wood, right? Snaking up under their garments. And I'll be honest, until today, I had never noticed that. I had looked at Tristani a lot, but I honestly, first of all, thought the middle one was a dude. I thought Tristani was the dude in the middle, because I had not paid attention to the flavor behind this. During Return to Ravnica, that was back when I was busy with school and other things. So magic flavor and stuff like that took kind of a side to that. Now, I thought this was a dude and two random chicks here. I had no idea this was three druids fused together. I thought they were just Celestian servants or populated whatever, because I never looked into it. So to know that this is actually three dryads all fused together with the world tree is a really cool concept. And you can see the power of this character in terms of like cards like Serene Remembrance, where you see the three heads of Tristani all put together with like crazy viney hair. I love this artwork. It almost gives an underwater feel, right? I mean, that's not what's going on, but it almost feels underwater. It's got this otherworldly kind of feel. It has that halo glowing sphere of light kind of effect that's happening at the pinpoint above all three of their heads. And the flavor text: while Lazov schemed and Niv-Mizzet researched, Tristani sought the future in the whispers of the past. It's pretty cool. Basically, just this mentally focusing on the past is actually able to draw the magic from the past back. That's cool. And Tristani is also represented, and I had never noticed this as well, in the front of the artwork of Court of Calling. And you can see the middle part of Tristani right there with that crazy little crown of glowing light shards that she has above her head, and the crazy like trunk of her body and the three different branches of the three sisters here. That's really cool. And I enjoy the way that the Convoke is brought across, not only with those three being there, but all like the lesser druids and elves with their hands outraised in a ritual of summoning. So that's cool. You see these spells that represent the power of the Celestians, and specifically tie in Tristani, like Chorus of Might, where it talks about in each of us is the strength of all of us, because it's a very everyone together sort of guild, right? Like, they're not about individualism. They're about collectivism, power as a group. That's how they operate. And you could see how Tristani was having a very beneficial effect on the guild, and to the dismay of other guilds. In fact, you're looking at the flavor text of cards like Unflinching Courage. As Tristani's influence grew, vitality spread through the conclave, much to the other guilds' dismay. Obviously, the other 10 guilds, whenever another guild weakens, that gives them more leverage in that power struggle through it, because it's all political and things like that too in the giant cityscape world, right? You can't escape that. So that's a part of it. I enjoy the way that they demonstrate Tristani's influence and power on the guild through these different cards. And everybody who's a part of the Celestian Guild is reverent of Tristani. That's how it works. You can see that illustrated in the Celestian Guild Gate from Dragon's Maze, which has absolutely gorgeous art, by the way. The flavor text says, the Celestia welcome all to help them heal the city's wounds. The price, however, is devotion to the guild and a selfless belief in Tristani. So you must believe in Tristani. The entire guild puts their faith, their belief, everything in Tristani. Tristani and the world key, the world tree are the key, right? And that's why today's card is so unsettling, guys, because now it's Tristani Discordant. All right, now when we take a look at this card, you have 1 white, 1 green, 3 colorless for a 1/4. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2 1/1 white soldier creatures tokens with lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, each player gains control of all creatures they own. Now that's a significant amount of abilities. They've trimmed down the amount of green and white you need and added to the color. So instead of costing 4, now Tristani costs 5, but Tristani is now more splashable than she used to be. The power and toughness have downgraded from a 2/5 to a 1/4, but it does extend that bonus out across all creatures with that +1/+1. Plus, it does make 2 creatures that really help you with your Convoke abilities. So that is really nice. Now, in terms of the way that flavorfully the abilities differ from the previous one, before you would gain life whenever any creature came into play, which represented like oh, as the guild grows, I grow in strength. Now, this one is more of a strength being spread out. It doesn't have that same sort of, you do gain by growing, but not in a sort of life kind of sense, in a militaristic sort of sense. The end step part, where everybody gains control of all creatures they own, it's an interesting concept because at this point we're looking at a world where Nicol Bolas has infiltrated one or more of the guilds and we don't know which. Now, is this ability of returning all creatures to everybody, is that a representation of like no longer trust any guild whatsoever, to each their own, and even the more welcoming style guilds like Celestian are now closing off and closing down? You have the name Tristani Discordant. Now, discordant, for those of you who don't know what it means, basically it means like it's like the opposite of harmony, a lack of harmony. It's like listening to a really great song that you know really well, and then all of a sudden a bunch of the notes are just dead wrong, and it's so jarring because you're like, you know how the song is supposed to go. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Snowman had a coat. You know what I mean? Like when you do that, it's, where are you going with this? That's discordancy. And on a side note, this really made me chuckle actually. Why would you name a chat app Discord? That, like, why, like, we're gonna name our chat app Let's Fight, arguing the app. Sign up. Welcome discourse here. I mean, that's a side note. Anyways, so it's Tristani Discordant, right? And this is the leader of the Celestian Guild, and the Celestian Guild is all about unity and all about following the lead of Tristani. Now, Tristani is fractured, right? Tristani, if you even look at the artwork, you can see at first that, let me just say this, the autumnal artwork is gorgeous with these leaves just drifting down. Looks so nice. On top of that, the wood effect of their bodies, the melding of them with the world tree, it seems to be progressing more at pace. Now, if you noticed before, and we can put the artwork up side by side for contrast to give you an idea, but if you noticed before, they all had garments, right? And that was part of the reason I didn't notice that they were fused with the tree the same way. So they all had garments before. Those garments are gone now. Even at the top where it looks like they have like kind of robes on, that's wood. If you look closely, you can see they are now garbed entirely in wood, with the exception possibly of what is on the top of the middle girl's. I don't know the names of them off the top of my head here, but the middle figure's head no longer has that crown of light on top of it, and that may be a bit of fabric on the head there. But the rest of it is definitely wooden now, and you can see, so there's no real trace of clothing. On top of that, they now all seem to have this ivy sort of hair. I absolutely love the contrast of the vivid sort of spring version and this autumnal version. I don't care about the Ravnica and autumn aspect on a lot of cards because it literally just means they've painted some trees in the back orange. But when you're talking about a living tree, I mean, this is a completely different scenario. Now, to return to the discordant aspect, and if you look at the artwork of the original, you can see all three of them are facing in the exact same direction. They're all facing you, all looking at you, all with the same perspective, right? All of the same mind, all unified. Now, this is Tristani Discordant, and you can see you have one looking up hopeful. You have one looking down in despair, maybe hopelessness, and then you have one in kind of fear and trepidation looking over. So nobody is looking in the same direction. There's no unity to these poses. There's no unity to the body language. There's no unity to the direction there's looking. There's no unity at all amongst them anymore. So the idea of why is Tristani discordant, and the effect that this discordancy causes is so massive that it ripples out across the entirety of Ravnica and causes all of the different guilds to be forced back with their own affiliation. It just ferrets out all the spies and forces them away and things. It's incredibly evocative in all honesty. I really enjoy the difference between the two. It feels like a massive change, and it makes me genuinely curious about the storyline and what's going on. And a lot of the time I found with the newer stuff in terms of the Gatewatch and Bolas, I'm kind of burnt out on it. I just don't care anymore about it. But this made me really wonder what's going on with Ravnica, what's going on with Celestia, what's going on with the World Tree for it to get this bad, that the greatest voice of unity on the plane is now completely fractured even within itself. How are you supposed to bind your three minds together and reminisce on the past and come up with a plan when you have this going on? So to me, incredibly interesting. Let me know what your guys' perspective is when you look at the art, what you think about it. Does it feel discordant to you. The card itself, if we just talk about mechanics and power, seems like a really, really solid card. 5 mana, it's going to net you 2/2/2s with lifelink on top of protecting your stuff from getting stolen and boosting your other guys. Seems solid. So, that being said, time to check on in with the 6-color Magic, baby.
Hello from Cyclozen's Bathtub, aka Tub Talks. Together, we are the 6-color of Magic.
Alright, so that brings us to the final part of the episode where we roll that golden scroll. Show them golden lords, they've all got my back. Time to add another. Welcome, Anthony Martinez. Thank you for joining my Patreon. Welcome to the Golden Lords of Purple. Happy to have you on board. You will see your name down there added at the end. So what's next? You want to talk about some more Magic cards? You want some lore? Or you want to see what's popping off over on my comedy channel where I do all kinds of funny stuff over here? Your choice. Choose wisely. Later. And I'm history, baby.